Okay, no, I'm so serious though. What about giants?
That's not real.
No, no, okay, and they're like in the puppets, the giant puppets. You've seen that.
Fake. You saw that on TikTok.
Okay, but what about that time that they're like, we're so sure there were aliens? Like,
That wasn't real. Come on. That was a media scare.
no, they said it in the news. There were aliens.
Okay, and even if it was real, what would it matter? If we had aliens? What would that change about our day-to-day lives? Nothing. Let me work.
Yeah, that's literally like the least fun way to think about aliens. Oh, do you want a sandwich?
Oh my god, let me work. Shut. Shush. Shush.
Jesus, fine, okay. Okay, what about like gene editing? Like, they make like super people.
No, you know what? Actually, that one is a thing.
Really, that one's real.
What, you're talking about gene editing, right? Okay. No, that is a real thing.
Okay.
Admittedly, in this day and age, there is no shortage of things that make it feel like we're living in some wild sci-fi dystopia, right? Every day, we are on some new catastrophe that, like, may well be the end of the world. So while a lot of these situations that we are privy to seem pretty bleak, actually the advent of the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing system is one a bit more optimistic, as sci-fi scary as it sounds. Back in 2018, press went wild with the uncovery that Chinese researcher Jiankui had played a crucial role in creating the world's first ever genetically edited babies. Using CRISPR-Cas9 technology, Jiankui was able to edit the genetic code of the embryos of 2 twin girls while in utero, with the proposed goal of this gene editing to be preventing them from being able to catch HIV. These twins were fathered by males that were HIV carriers. In this research, Jiankui used CRISPR technology to immunize these babies by disabling their CCR5 gene. This gene enables the HIV virus to infect the body. That sounds like basically a good thing, right? Of course, anything with genetic editing stems a ton of ethical controversy, and to this point, this experimentation was not done completely within China's legalities for this kind of procedure. Regulations in China deemed it illegal to do any kind of research on human in vitro embryos at 14th day after conception implantation into the uterus. So any kind of experimentation or alteration that isn't life-saving procedure is banned. With this being said, this experiment cannot be argued to have been a life-saving procedure for these embryos. So the sperm used in conception of these twin embryos was vetted to where the sperm that would be directly passing the HIV virus were weeded out. Only healthy sperm were used to conceive these embryos, so these girls weren't at any direct risk of catching HIV. With this being said, the gene that was edited, the CCR5 gene, actually has other implications into human brain development, as well as just being affected by the HIV virus. Members of the scientific community suspicious of this research have wondered if this experiment was not to see if there could be more highly intelligent humans created with this kind of in utero genetic modification, because the CCR5 gene also has a fair amount of control over IQ and memory retention. So it could stand to be a big deal if these kind of genetically modified humans were successful. CRISPR-Cas9 technology in general is a relatively new way of genetic editing, and it's really promising so far. In the past, gene editing could only be done by adding genes to a genomic sequence. CRISPR-Cas9 is a lot more precise at doing this and can also replace or delete genes within the genome. This opens up a lot of potential for procedures in which maybe a correction needs to be made within a genome even, and the level of precision that this can be done with, and it's relatively cheap in the world of the medical field. It's one of the more accessible means of genetic editing. We could see this as a standard procedure performed in the medical field in the not too distant future, and I realize that sounds bonkers, right? The idea of, in a future not too distant to our own, being able to genetically modify future generations of humans as they come in. It does sound dystopian, but really, it could be used for the better. From the early days of sequencing the human genome, there have been ethical concerns about having this kind of information in general and what'll be done with it. The idea in itself, again, seems very daunting, very scary, and there are fair arguments to make about how can this be done ethically. If we have the opportunity to enhance human beings genetically, how can this be done in a way that isn't just available to the upper elites and leaves the poor and marginalized less than? And while those questions are completely valid and really should heed some thought, many argue that that is not a strong enough reason not to conduct this type of research, because it could have massive benefits to humanity as a whole, and if we look past the now into the broad scope future, it could have untold benefits for the human race, right? All right, let's get back to Lulu and Nana. Those are the twin girls, genetically edited, created by researcher Jiankui. So recent reports have come out that the girls are healthy. As of this year, they are starting kindergarten, and things seem to be going fine for them, which is excellent news. It's wildly important to remember in this kind of situation, while there can be huge shockwaves and public scandal, these are also real human children, right? That need to be handled with the care and thoughtfulness that you would regard any other human situation with. That they are actual people, not just experiments. With that being said, Jiankui did end up facing legal repercussions for performing this kind of procedure, again, because it was outside of China's legal grounds for what is acceptable in genetic editing practice. He ended up doing 3 years in prison for violating these medical regulations, and really, unfortunately, set a murky taste in people's mouths for this kind of technology, right? So the way he went about this was rightfully controversial. It came out after he went to trial in 2019 for this, that he had forged documents from an ethics review panel and used these to recruit couples in for his research. So the participants that were going into this did not have complete informed consent of what was happening, which is very scary and completely not ideal. With that being said, Jiankui is no longer in prison and reports happily returning to his research, though this time acknowledging that he jumped the gun a bit in dodging proper procedure to genetically edit those embryos back in 2018. His current research has stepped back from that and is looking at genetic prevention for Alzheimer's disease. He's come out and assured the public that his team will no longer be using live human embryos, that they are going to be working with only discarded human embryos, and that they will be making sure to abide by international and domestic rules for this kind of procedure this time around. Again, I can't state enough how important that is with this kind of research, because if you're trying to get the public to support something this extreme, this resounding, you have to do it clean cut. If there can't be room for scandal in something that people are already so afraid of, right? A big factor of getting the public to trust science in general, which has been a bit of a trifle in recent years, is presenting information as accessibly as possible and making sure that you are doing things in proper standard, right? If people can poke a hole in something, they absolutely will. And in this case, they kind of should. You know, this isn't some hypothetical thing that's happening. This is toying with people's actual lives. And while there is a huge precedent to really help people with this kind of procedure, it again must be handled with the utmost care because we are dealing with real people in real situations. While the ethics of these kind of procedures are already shaky, things need to be conducted properly from the get-go to make sure that things don't skew in a way that is an abuse of this kind of technology.
Okay, like really though, are you done with that paper yet? Hungry. Okay, give me like 5 more minutes.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I've got my sources linked down in the bio, and I encourage you to look into them and be excited for more to come. I'm sorry. I gotta finish this. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet. I just got yelled at by a cat.